In today's show, we're talking Washington Wizards, their season coming up, what we can expect from this team that has undergone drastic changes. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd. I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Instagram's at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Apologies for that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms. You would have heard the announcement over the weekend for the FBI Fantasy Basketball International and Locked On Fantasy Basketball World Cup. Go check out that episode on the early Yahoo rankings across the weekend to hear more details about that. We're going to be doing entries for that. Not going to plug that too much on this show. We are going to be doing entries for that over the next few weeks. We've got a bunch of spots to fill, and I'm excited to see you guys in there. So just keep an eye out, an ear out for the other entry stuff that is going to happen for the FBI/X LOFB Fantasy Basketball World Cup. But now we're going to talk about the Washington Wizards, so we might as well talk about the Washington Wizards. It's his first time on the show. Welcome, one of the hosts of the Locked On Wizards podcast. Brandon Scott is here. Brandon, welcome.
Hey, how's it going, man?
It's good to have you here on a very early Saturday morning. I'm recording this here for me, but that's fine. We're ready to roll. We're just getting through all these team previews, and this is one of the most interesting teams, I think, in the NBA, just because of the massive amount of change that the team has undergone. We're going to talk a little bit more about what that means for the franchise, but let's just have a quick look at how things look in terms of players in, players out. Jordan Poole's here. Tyus Jones is here. They drafted Bilal Coulibaly. They acquired Danilo Gallinari, which honestly I think most people don't know about. Landry Shamet's there, Mike Muscala, Ryan Rollins, Patrick Baldwin Jr. I could keep going. And then the guys they lost, Porzingis, Beal, Monte Morris. That's three starters from last season. Jay Huff, Jordan Goodwin, Kendrick Nunn, Quentin Jackson. I could probably also keep going on that list as well. Now, the common theme, Brandon, or the common idea is, well, Bradley Beal's been traded. We don't have to rehash contract and all that sort of. That's all they've done. Porzingis is gone, who was their best player last season. Monte Morris was their starting point guard. He's gone. But while that might make it seem like this is an absolute tear down, full rebuild, Jordan Poole's a pretty good player. Tyus Jones is a pretty good point guard. They brought back Kyle Kuzma. I don't think they're going to be as bad as people think they are.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's going to be a competitive rebuild. You know, you already mentioned it. Jordan Poole, who I think is going to be a future all-star, if not an all-star within the next couple of years. Kyle Kuzma coming back provides a lot of leadership for this team. And there's a lot of intriguing young players. Like you already mentioned it, Bilal Coulibaly. But with this being the contract year for Denny Avdia, we're kind of looking at maybe he could have a breakout year. We're looking for Kyle, rather Corey Kispert to kind of take that step. And Johnny Davis, obviously he has a few people hitting him on the depth chart, but after the deadline, when a lot of these veterans are going to be moved, you could see playing time for Johnny Davis. And it's very intriguing to see if he takes that step forward. So it's a very intriguing roster. Like I said, you have vets, like Mike Muscala, Landry Shamet, who are kind of placeholders for rookies right now, or young players in Johnny Davis and Bilal Coulibaly. But after the deadline, you're going to see a lot of minutes open up. And so it's going to be a very intriguing year. But it's funny because we're not going to be a very good team, but it's going to be fun to watch. It's very, Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma can score. So it's going to be very fun to watch this year.
I think the point you bring up there about the deadline is really interesting because the way it's currently constructed, this team is not that bad. There is glaring depth issues in terms of who the hell is the backup center. But if guys do get moved, whether it is Tyus Jones or whatever they decide to do in Gallinari, obviously a key piece that could get moved, honestly, before the season even starts, like that'll open up a lot of stuff for them to be much worse. But they did lose good players, but they didn't replace everybody with bad players. And that's what's going to make it an interesting team early on in the season where, I'm not sure they'll be exactly like we thought the Utah. We thought the Utah Jazz would be terrible last season, and they surprised us early on. Not sure the Wizards will be exactly like that, but I wouldn't be shocked if Poole and Kuzma come out and Tyus Jones is able to set things up, because the team is. Well, we can look at some teams and talent drain. I think it's like not terribly constructed in terms of the pieces fitting together.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, me and my co-host both think they do need a consolidation trade. I don't think it's going to happen before the season. I definitely think at the deadline you could see Tyus Jones being moved. Mike Muscala, stretch five, is necessarily the answer at backup center, because you mentioned it. Daniel Gafford, I'm a big fan of him, but is he the center of the future? It remains to be seen. He has his deficiencies. He's kind of one-dimensional as far as the modern-day center. He hasn't really developed a long-range shot, a mid-range yet. But I think the difference between this team as opposed to teams in the past is that we have flexibility. Kyle Kuzma is a very team-friendly contract. He could be moved down the line, if not this deadline, if not next year, for assets. For the first time in a long time, we are not tied down by a major contract. Whether it was John Wall's extension, whether it was Bradley Beal's Supermax contract, we're not tied down. We have a lot of options to either, trade or even build around. Jordan Poole is intriguing because he is a player that I believe we can build around. And if not him being the guy, he's definitely part of the foundation for a team, to be built into a contender here in DC. So, like I said, it's a lot of moving pieces, but at the deadline, I think we're going to get a much clearer picture of the roster going forward. Because we said it. Tyus Jones, I believe, is going to be moved. Landry Shamet's definitely going to be moved. Danilo Gallinari, I think they're going to try to get his value up and then try to move him. And Mike Muscala could be on the move also, and that could bring us more picks, more young players. So, with this new big three in the front office, there's a lot of optimism that hasn't been in DC for a long time when it comes to the Wizards.
One of the other things about the Wizards is, I believe, entering the season, there's no one who is suffering any injuries at this point. Danilo Gallinari obviously didn't play at all last season, but we're over 12 months removed from his ACL injury, so everyone is ready to go and healthy and fit and raring, which is awesome. Now, your projected starting five is the one that I think is going to be the starting five as well. Tyus Jones, Jordan Poole, Deni Avdija, Kyle Kuzma, Daniel Gafford. Now, there will be a lot of people out there, Brandon, who think that Corey Kispert will start over Deni Avdija. There'll be a lot of people out there who think that Bilal Coulibaly will start, which I think is 100% wrong. There is zero chance that Bilal is starting opening night. That's just not going to happen. I can see between Deni and Corey as a battle, but to me, having Corey Kispert a defensively challenged scoring shooting player between Jordan Poole, a defensively challenged offensive scoring shooting player, and Kyle Kuzma, a defensively challenged offensive scoring shooting player, is probably not a great combination. So you put Avdija and Gafford to hold down the defense, Kuzma and Poole to do the scoring and shooting, and Tyus Jones to do bits and pieces of everything. I think it's that's what I was talking about earlier, about a balanced starting five. And while you might say that Kispert's got better upside than Avdija, I disagree, but people might say that. I just think the fit there doesn't make a ton of sense to have him starting over Deni.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because if you look at the NBA as far as value, defense is at a premium right now. If you look at the fact that Marcus Smart, they got 2 first-round picks for him.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the Gobert trade, which pretty much reshaped the NBA as far as value in trades, he got it solely because he is a defensive player. So that's a big reason why I put Deni in there as opposed to Kispert, because, Deni Avdija, defensively, he's shown that he can lock down premium players in the NBA. Now, obviously, his big shortfall is working on his offensive side of the game, which, he needs to improve his three-point shot. He needs to work on finishing through traffic, and he needs to work on his left hand. But, that adds another dynamic to this team, that if Deni Avdija can finally have that breakout season, they're going to be better than advertised. I don't think they're going to be a bottom team in the East. They're not really trying to get a playoff position, but they're going to be very competitive. And this rebuild could be shorter than imagined.
Yeah, I think that's not. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be shorter than imagined, but it gets on a better path than where they were before. They still they do need to be bad because ideally especially after the news today of Cooper Flagg reclassifying to 2025 NBA draft class, which was always on the cards, but this is an unbelievable level prospect. If you can get a top pick in 25 or 26, like that really sets you up, because there's going to be 2 blokes in 26 and Flagg in 25 who are going to be awesome prospects. They need to be able to get a top pick there, but they've also got guys here who are solid enough, who are young enough in Poole as well. He's only 24. He's in 3 years' time, 4 years' time, he's in his prime. Like, he's 28. Like, that's banging prime territory. We'll see whether he remains here that long. But this is, and Avdia's 24 as well, and Kispert's 24, and Davis is 21, and Bilal's 19. Like, there's a bunch of guys here who are going to grow into that next 3 to 4 year period. I think it's well known that what Jordan Poole is and what he isn't, but I think what people don't also realize with him is he has had stretches of being a pretty good passer, and I think he's going to put up some pretty big numbers. Who do you think between Poole and Kuzma will lead the team in shot attempts per game?
That's a really good question because I think the ball's going to be flying with those two in the lineup. I'm going to say Kuzma, and the reason I say that is because he knows how to utilize his size. If you look at his size and his ability to drive the lane, and I get it, Jordan Poole, he's electric with the ball. He can score, he can pass. But Kuzma with that size, and there's a reason why they call him Clutch Kuz. He's the shot against the Detroit Pistons. He's money with the 3-point shot. So I'm gonna say Kuzma, but it's very close because you best believe between Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole, they're going to shoot the ball a ton.
Last season, in terms of just on a per possession basis, Kuzma had the edge, 24.4 versus 24.1. Kuzma had to play with Beal and Porzingis. Poole had to play with Clay and Steph. So they're both moving into a different territory here of being either the 1 or the 1A or the 1 or the 2 option. And we'll see how that works out. It's going to be a battle to watch for sure to see which guy can get up as many shots as possible. But they are going to be really interesting players and pretty useful players, I think, for fantasy. We're going to get into your rotation in a second. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you guys about FanDuel Sportsbook because that's who's bringing us today's episode. Football season has kicked off, and FanDuel is here to help you get that chance to win all season long. And right now, there is an awesome offer. When you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you get bonus bets every time that they win in the regular season. Now, Brandon, I'm not sure if the Commanders have any shot at winning the Super Bowl, so maybe placing a Super Bowl winning bet on the Commanders doesn't generate you a huge amount of bonus bets, but another NFC team that might be in the same division, if you put a bet on the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm sure you love hearing that the Eagles are Super Bowl contenders. The bonus bet you can get back from them might be really, really big. And use those bonus bets on spreads and money lines, player props, over-unders, whatever it is, you can use those bonus bets. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. All right, sorry for the unnecessary shots at the Commanders there, Brandon, but get better. There's got to get better. I'm a Dolphins fan that's dealing with not winning playoff game for 30 years. So we'll see where that ends up going. The rotation. It is hard to work this out, and this is how you think they're going to open up opening night. Dylan Wright, Landry Shamet, Corey Kispert, Patrick Baldwin, Mike Muscala. Now that does not include Bilal Coulibaly. It does not include Johnny Davis. It doesn't include Ryan Rollins. It doesn't include Danilo Gallinari. And they are all legitimate chances of getting rotation minutes. And I think it's just going to be back at... Shamet gets injured a lot. Dylan Wright has a lot of problems with injury. Mike Muscala is older. Who knows who's going to be around? But there is a lot of depth. There's like eighth men on this team probably. And they all can get opportunities. Now, Bilal will get into the rotation and Davis will get in there. But there's no argument for anyone to tell me that Delon, Shamet, and Kispert aren't better than those players at this moment.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that's kind of tricky is that I kind of look at this upcoming season as far as this rotation is, before the trade deadline and after the trade deadline. Because, obviously looking at your starting 5, Tyus Jones going into the season will be your starting point guard. But I believe that after the deadline, Jordan Poole will be that guy at point guard. And it'll free up minutes. You could see Kispert at the 2. So there's a lot of variables. But you mentioned it with the 4 on the second unit. Patrick Baldwin Jr. is intriguing, but you could see Gallinari. It remains to see him coming back from an ACL surgery, how effective he could be. But he could be slid into the second unit ahead of Patrick Baldwin because, they want to get value for him. They want to showcase him to teams, to contending teams at the deadline. So you could see that change, but it's tricky because Landry Shamet, they're definitely going to get value for him. He's holding the place for Johnny Davis, in my opinion, at the 2. Corey Kispert, until they move Tyus Jones, is going to be on the second unit. But again, after the deadline, you could see Kispert slide into the starting unit. And I think Bilal Coulibaly, you'll finally see him get minutes. But I think that's the biggest thing before the trade deadline is that the Wizards are going to try to showcase a lot of these veterans to try to get assets. So to really get playing time for Bilal Coulibaly and Johnny Davis is really going to be in the second half of the year.
A couple of things with that. I normally had to test the idea of showcasing players for trades because these are NBA GMs. They know who players are. We know how they perform. But in this case, Gallinari's coming off a torn ACL. He's 35. I literally have no idea. He might be completely done. It is worthwhile getting him out there because I honestly have no idea at the age of 35, without playing a season due to an ACL, he just might be finished. So you do actually need to see him on the court. It might be a detriment to the Wizards. He might get out there and you go, oh no, like he can't even move, even worse than he couldn't move before. And one of the strengths he developed in his 30s was getting to the rim and drawing free throws, and maybe that is gone as well. That's a distinct possibility. I know Landry Shamet's new in your team. Yeah, look, get ready. He's terrible. And you got to see him play and you got to go, get this guy out of here. He is really, really bad. But speaking of, that's rude. I was going to say, speaking of really bad, how was Johnny Davis as a rookie? Because he sucked for the majority of the season. But let's put some context on it, Brandon, because at the end of the season, yes, everybody was out, and that is true. So somebody's got to get shots. Corey Kispert was averaging like 20 a game over the final 5 games, I think it was. But Davis did show some signs of improvement. So not to just heap on how bad of a draft pick or how bad he was as a rookie, let's talk about the things that Johnny Davis can improve this season.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, he's solid. Is he a shutdown yet? Yep. Not yet. But defensively, he can definitely defend at an NBA level. With him is confidence, kind of like Denny Avdia, and really most of the young players is a confidence thing. When he's a confident player, you see a totally different Johnny Davis. And another thing to kind of look at is that his first year at Wisconsin, he had a slow year. His second year, he picked up the speed at the Big Ten, and he was a completely different player. So looking at his rookie year, his the beginning of the year it was hard to watch. But he went to the G League. He got some playing time. He figured out the speed in the NBA, and the confidence really shows. When he's confident, it shows, that a scorer, because I think he's that scorer coming out of Wisconsin. But, he's got some things to work on. He's not going to blow past defenders, so he's got to be more savvy as far as his footwork and his dribbling, because, again, he's not going to blow past anybody. So for him to be that scorer in the NBA, he's got to be a little savvy. And I think someone I'm kind of compared to it's hard to compare him, but like Dwayne Wade. I'm not saying he's going to be like Dwayne Wade.
No, I get what you're saying.
Dwayne Wade was never really like a real fast guy. He was savvy. He knew how to use his speed to his best advantage, and he just made a Hall of Fame career out of it. So, Johnny Davis, he definitely needs to learn the footwork of the NBA because the speed just isn't there.
Yeah, that was my concern with him coming out of the draft, is that a lot of what he was able to do was a little bit of bullying against college opponents, and I just didn't know what he could hang his hat on to do anything offensively in the NBA. He shot horribly at NBA level. Part of my worry with Davis is you look at his G League numbers and they're also bad, and that's a little red flaggy, where he averaged 12 points a game and shot 33% from three. He only took 4 3-point attempts. There were signs at the end of the regular season in the NBA where he looked a little bit better, but he was pretty bad even in that G League. But this is the list we've got up on the screen here, the list of players under the age of 23. And there's a few of them: Denny Avdia, Johnny Davis, Bilal Kalabali, Ryan Rollins, Patrick Baldwin, and Tristan Vukcevic. I want to start with Vukcevic because at the moment he is not signed. What is the plan?
Well, I think that a lot of has to do with his contract overseas. Now, one thing that kind of impressed me about him was the fact that he wanted to come over here right away and start working with the team and start getting. So, he's a very intriguing prospect because if you look at his size and his offensive capabilities, he can definitely be a diamond in the rough. Now, the biggest thing with him is that, he's really got to work on the defensive end. He's, during summer league, he did show promise. The effort is there, but he's got to learn the footwork of the NBA game and how to be a center. Because overseas he's more, you're a little loose with, being a scorer with his size. But in the NBA, to go against the Aitons, the Embiids, he's going to have to learn how to play with his back to the basket and really know how to defend these bigs. But he's very intriguing. I think he's definitely a sleeper as far as the young cast because he's got the tools there offensively.
Yeah, he does.
Absolutely. He fits into the modern day NBA big. So that's what I like about him.
He's 7 foot tall. He can shoot the ball. He didn't shoot well at Summer League. The defense is a problem, but like we've touched on a couple of times, the backup center on this team is a disaster at the moment. Like it is Mike Muscala, and the other option at the moment is Anthony Gill, I guess, and both of those guys are not good. And no, that's true. Muscala is a pretty good player, but he's 32 and he's not a part of anything that you're trying to do. Daniel Gafford, I think, left for the locker room in about 20 straight games last season at the end with an ankle sprain. Returned the next game, but had foul trouble, so you can't play him 36 minutes. That's just not going to happen. So, yeah, tying all of that in, this is not even necessarily talking about these young guys, but like, are we going to see Kuzma center lineups? I think we might have to, or even you play Denny Avdia and just go super small.
Well, that's definitely an option. Playing Kuzma as small ball center, I think that is an option that they kind of need to look at because Daniel Gafford, again, I don't think he's the center of the future. Now, I do like Gaff, but he has the same issues. Getting into foul trouble,
Mhm.
being very limited offensively. He has to be kind of spoon fed from a point guard who can kind of push the pace. And he kind of worked on the mid range to a certain degree the last 10 games of the year, but he's far from being any kind of like a dependable shooter. But it's going to be tricky to see how the center position unfolds going forward with the Wizards because next year is a very forward heavy draft. Outside of Bradshaw out of Texas, there's not a lot of centers in the that can come in and make that impact right away. They could make a move to maybe a disgruntled guy, maybe a DeAndre Ayton. That's an option, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do center wise because again, Daniel Gafford he's not that guy. In a rebuilding team, yeah. But if they're serious about bidding this into a contender, they're gonna have to make a move as the center position.
I think Daniel Gafford's fine actually. Like he's about to turn 25. He's not old, but I think there's no reason to me that Daniel Gafford can't have a career that has an impact similar to Clint Capella. That's not a great center. That's not a high usage center. But you don't need it. Like I don't think you need that with Kuzma and Poole taking shots, and you hope that Bilal turns into a two-way guy who can be an offensive guy and a defensive guy, and Kispert becomes an offensive guy, and you get another offensive sort of weapon in the draft. I don't think you need someone who's going to be like I just throw him the ball and he gets 20 playing at the center position. I don't think you need that with Gafford. I think as long as he can stay out of foul trouble, I think he's going to turn quite a few heads this season. And again, he's not even 25 yet, and he can sort of grow with the not Kuzma's older, but with Poole and Avdia and all these younger guys, he can grow, become a prime player at 27. And I wouldn't be giving up hope. My problem is that when he gets into foul trouble, they're cooked because the guys behind him are absolutely terrible. One of the two guys I got from the Warriors, not Jordan Poole, Ryan Rollins and Patrick Baldwin, I'm really interested in them. I think Ryan Rollins is going to get rotation minutes at some point this season. Brandon, maybe that is when Tyus Jones is traded, or they trade Delon Wright, who's their backup point guard. But I'm really interested to see what Ryan Rollins can do. Has there been any buzz around the team about him?
There is. They're very impressed with him in summer league, and I think he could be the backup point guard of the future. He showed in summer league that he can shoot, he can push the pace because the biggest issue that we had last year, defense, 3-point shooting, but nothing was pushing the pace. If you look at the last 2 years, we had combo guards that were trying to turn into point guards who were just very stagnant on offense. Spencer Dinwiddie slowed the offense down, and Monte Morris, he had a little speed to his game, but we're kind of spoiled here in DC. We had John Wall for 10 years and then Russell Westbrook for years. So we're used to having a point guard who can push the pace, penetrate the defense, really collapse the defense, and really utilize shooters on the outside. So I think that Ryan Rollins I'm with you. I like the kid. I think he's going to be a really good basketball player. But Patrick Baldwin Jr., I mean, his shot is smooth as silk.
It is. It just hasn't gone in for 2 years. I hope it does start to go in because it didn't go in college. It didn't go in the NBA last season. But you're right. It does look good. He has a few little flashes. He's the second tallest player on this team, I think. Maybe he's like 6'11". He is an interesting player. And as we talked about earlier about Kuzma being traded, he's 28 and maybe he gets dealt. That would be because Avdia stepped up or Baldwin has stepped up because. Yeah, Baldwin, if it works out, and I think he's an okay player, but I'm not sure he's ever going to turn into a great player. But that's really strong, tall, shooting, power forward. Who you guys just had one of those who turned in the best season of his career and ended up in Boston after this year in Kristaps Porzingis. Not to say that Baldwin's that guy because he's not, but that tall shooting power forward archetype is exactly what he brings. Now we haven't spoken about Calabali here. I thought that Bilal's beginning of summer league, he looked lost in the first game or two. He didn't know what he was doing, which is fair enough. Defensively, I think he still looked good, but offensively, he was just absolutely missing, and he just never got the ball. He was never in the right spots. Defensively, I think he's going to be really good. Offensively, it's going to be a work in progress, but he did improve as the season went on. Now, as we referenced earlier, you didn't think he was going to be necessarily getting rotation minutes straight away, and I do tend to think that is going to be an issue because there are other guys ahead of him here. What do you think the overall hope is for him? Obviously, they targeted him. They moved up in the draft to get him, which if we had spoken about that 4 months ago, there's no chance he was going in the top 10. What are they expecting? Are they be our defensive wing guy and whatever you bring offensively is a bonus, or do they see legitimate offensive upside there too?
I think long term they want to develop him into a 3-and-D guy. They're hoping that his offensive game will kind of come along as his career goes. Now, obviously, offensively, he needs work. His shot release has to get faster. You know, they're going to get a hand in your face a lot faster in the NBA than he's used to. So he definitely has to work on a faster release. But there's hope. You know, him driving the lane, him pushing the pace in transition. You know, that was very impressive in summer league. Defensively, a lot of noise around the organization is they love his defensive side. I mean, they really view him as a guy who could potentially be an all defensive guy, because if you look at the fact that he has a 7'2" wingspan, and he's still growing at 19 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, defensively, you know, the rundown blocks, the blocks, the steals, defensively, his instincts are on right where you want him to be. It's just, you know, really getting his offensive repertoire up and going. But, you know, his shot is not broken. It's just he has to work on a faster release, and he has to learn how to utilize his size. And that's often a struggle with young guys. He's got to learn how to utilize his size, because I mean his wingspan is just, he's got an unreal athleticism. So, yeah.
He looks awesome. Like, in terms of body size and defensive stuff, we hope he's not. I don't want to bring up too many bad memories. We hope he doesn't turn into the next Isaac Bonga, who was a Wizards legend for a bit of time, who was a long small forward with some. I've actually got my little Isaac Bonga signed rookie card sitting on my desk here. He was a guy that had that defensive potential, whose offense never came around. Bilal was able to dominate offensively at youth levels. You look at the numbers he put up for that Metropolitans junior team, the second team, he killed him offensively, passing, scoring, finishing, like everything was awesome. And then he struggled a little bit moving up to the big team, but man, the bloke just turned 19, so there is plenty of upside there still with him. All right, here's the major question. We know that they fired Tommy Shepard as the GM. They brought in the guys formerly from OKC and from the Clippers in Michael Winger. How did they convince Ted Leonsis that they needed to reset this?
Well, I mean, the very definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. You know, he faced a hard choice, which was, you know, we can continue to do the same thing and expect the same results. Mm-hmm. I mean, which is a playing, hopeful team. You know, and really he listened to the fan base. You know, the fan base is very, very disgruntled at that point, because, you know, we watched so many guys get a Supermax contract. You know, Jawan Howard back in the day, you know, just Gilbert Arenas, that it didn't end up very well. You know, John Wall, you know, and now Bradley Beal with the Supermax contracts. It's just, something had to be done. So they finally hit the reset button. And I think that the course of action they took in this offseason was very impressive, because you have three guys in the front office who easily could be a GM of their own team. You know, you're bringing in brain trust. And also you have a situation where, there's brainstorming. You know, it's not just one guy making all the decisions. You know, Tommy Shepard, how do I say this? He wasn't the best drafter. And, you know, normally he was not. Oh, he was terrible, man. But then if you look at his trades, you know, normally I was a big fan. Oh, absolutely. I was a big fan of the Daniel Gafford trade, bringing him over for the Bulls. Mm-hmm. And I think the KP trade were good trades. But what ultimately cost him his job was the KCP trade to Denver and Rui Hachimura to the Lakers. Because if you look at the Wizards last year, where were we hurting? 3-point shooting, defense, and bench scoring. And with KCP, you lost a really good 3-point shooter and probably your best defender outside of Denny Avdia. And then when we traded Rui Hachimura for a bag of chips, you know, we just got rid of our best bench player. So that pretty much just doomed his job right there. No, the fan base is very, very, very motivated with this front office, because they've made all the right decisions. You know, if you look at the trades they made, I mean, just flipping Chris Paul for Jordan Poole, which many executives around the league are like, why would you do that? But I mean, so they're doing all the right things in DC right now.
Yeah, look, it is a clearly different mindset, and you say that, you know, doing the same thing over and over again is insanity. Well, I'm glad that Ted was able to snap out of that level of insanity that had plagued him for the last 20 plus years, where we'll just keep trying. You never know. You never know. We'll just keep going. Yeah, let's just be okay. Let's be the 8th seed. Let's be the 8th seed. We'll just, you know, be the 8th seed. How about for this year we do something different and be the 8th seed? But we've flipped out of it, and you know what? They might actually end up being an 8th seed if things all go right this season anyway. But obviously that's not the idea or the plan of what they're trying to do. Again, I think they're going to be better than expected early on. And then I think Winger might say, no. See you guys later. And then we'll move into that rebuild time fully. What about a breakout candidate on this team?
Ooh, good question. I think that's an easy question. Denny Avdia, I think, is that breakout guy. I think that with this being a contract year, he's didn't play with the Olympics, the FIBA team for Team Israel. There was a minor injury, so they kind of said it behooved him to kind of stay stateside and work on his game. And it shows. You know, he's working on that left hand. He's working on the shot. Which, I get it. If you go off workout videos, Ben Simmons every year, you would think he'd be a sniper because every year he's got a video. And especially with Denny Avdia last year working with Drew Hanlon, you're expecting a lot more. But he's working his tail off. And work ethic has never been an issue for Denny, and that's why I think he's definitely a breakout candidate. If he can really have a consistent 3-point shot in mid-range to accompany that defense, you got a definite diamond in the rough with Denny Avdia.
I tend to agree, except I think Avdia is a pretty good player. I think that he was sort of screwed over a little bit with the way that he was used last season. He was jerked in and out of lineups when, honestly, we can talk about his perfect fit between Kuzma and Poole, which it is, but he was also a perfect fit between Porzingis and Beal. And they didn't always go that direction. And the only times he really seemed to thrive is when they would, at any point, put the ball in his hands and let him create for others. And then his minutes would go all over the place, and they'd limit his minutes and give them to Rui. Then they would say the only reason we can't give Denny minutes is because Rui's here, so we've traded him away. Then they wouldn't give him minutes. And it was all over the place. And my concern about all of that is it's the same guy making the minutes decision that's still there in Wes Unseld Jr., who seemed to just not be confident in Denny for whatever reason. Maybe it is the shooting. He's been like a 31% shooter for 3 straight years. I think he was actually down to 30 this season from 3, which is not an ideal number. But I do agree that he needs to be given this opportunity. He should be given this opportunity. It is a perfect fit next to these guys, and I just want to see it happen. But because Wes is still there, and he was the culprit who was not allowing Denny to get that level of consistency rolling last season, I'm a little concerned that may carry over. I don't know that it will, but I'm a little concerned with that. What about on the regression side? Because that's hard to judge, I guess, because no one's really the same player that was here last season. But is there anyone you look on this team that might take a step back from what they did last season?
Man, really good question. I would have to roll. We were talking about him earlier. I would kind of look at Gallinari. You don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
Come on, especially with his age, coming off the ACL injury like that, you really don't know what to expect from him. So I think regression-wise, I think you're going to see a much older Danilo Gallinari this year.
The other thing I'd look at is Delon Wright is 31. I think he was awesome last season. Yeah, that's a significant ankle injury early in the season, but then came back and was really good. But he also averaged an insane steal rate, the highest steal rate that he's ever had, and was one of the highest rates we've seen really in forever. 3.6 steals per 100 possessions is crazy, and just that's probably just unlikely to continue. I thought he was super important. I think he's a guy that all contending teams should be going after to fill a backup point guard role. But I'm just worried that maybe they should have tried to pull the trigger on that a little bit earlier, because I don't think he could have had a better defensive season than he put together last season.
Yeah, I agree. But when it comes to DeLon and Gallinari, I think the important thing is leadership. With a young team, leadership is big, especially with, Denny Avdia being a foreign player. Having Gallinari, who, is a European player, being there, showing him the ropes, I think it'd be very important, because it's tough coming over to, the United States. And Denny Avdia is famous for saying that, he's been homesick, the entire time in DC. So I think, having a guy who was very successful in the NBA in Gallinari, showing him the ropes, being that guy, because if you saw the relationship between Denny and KP last year, KP was very, very pivotal in leadership and really bringing him along. So I think Gallinari and DeLon both can provide leadership to a young squad. I think that, obviously playing wise, yeah, I agree. DeLon's going to have slight regression, and Gallinari, you don't know what to expect. But I think with this team, they provide a very important piece, which is leadership.
We talked a lot about trades already, but if you had to single out one player, who is the most likely player to be traded?
Oh, I'm going to say Landry Shamet. He's taking up spot.
Yeah.
And I think that, really we don't know what's going to happen with Dame Lillard, whether he gets moved, James Harden. But I think that if there's a move out there that's going to be made, whether it involves James Harden or Dame Lillard, I'm going to try to get in that, because I think there's a report that Miami was interested in Landry Shamet. So I think Landry Shamet's that guy, because they need to give playing minutes to Bilal and Johnny Davis, and he seems to be that guy that's kind of in the way. So if I'm willing to bet, it's going to be Landry Shamet.
If I had to bet on the player that Wizards fans will turn on the quickest, it's going to be Landry Shamet as well, because he's bad. He sucks so badly, and he's on his 5th team in his 6th season or something. He's just really bad. So I cannot wait for Wizards fans to see him up close and see that maybe he changes, maybe he does something completely different. I doubt it. Anyway, let's have a look at wins, because last season this team had a 35-47 record. They had a negative 1.7 net rating, which is 23rd in the NBA, and FanDuel Sportsbook has come in and said, no, they're going to be terrible. Let's set their over-under at 24.5. I've got them at 24 and 58. You've got them at 25 and 57, so right around that FanDuel mark. Now, I've been saying this whole time, maybe they're not as bad as we think, but they do have so many triggers to make themselves as bad as we think, as we've said. I think they're going to be on a 30-win pace early on, 33-win pace early on, and then I think it does pull back. So we're both going at basically a 10-win regression from last season. For me, in my projections, I think that puts them as the second worst record in the NBA, which is exactly where they want to be, Brandon.
Oh, absolutely. We want to be bad this year.
Yeah.
Make no question about it. I think 25 wins, 24 is right around where I think they're going to project, because if you think about it, it's kind of like before deadline, after deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Before the deadline, they're going to try to showcase these vets. The second half of the year, is all about trying to develop these young guys. They got to develop Bilal and Johnny Davis. So,
well, here's a question for you, Brandon. Last season, we saw the Blazers and the Pistons just do some epic tank jobs, and I think the Pistons might have won one game out of their final 20. How many games do you reckon Washington wins after the trade deadline?
Maybe 10 games.
No chance. After the trade, if they win 2 games after the trade deadline, what Kyle Kuzma is going to have a knee problem for sure. Jordan Poole's going to have something wrong with it. There's no way. Look, I guess it depends on where their record is, but if they win in over 5 games after the trade deadline, I will absolutely fall over. There is no way. There is no way they're going to do that, because teams go unbelievably hard after that. Or after the All-Star break, maybe is more accurate. The Pistons went on that epic losing run to get themselves with the odds for the number 1 pick and not get it. But there's so many teams that just don't win any games there. So they might bank 20 wins, 22 wins before the All-Star break, and then sort of sit around that mark. That's going to be an interesting time. That's when Bilal and Johnny Davis are going to be running 33 minutes a night and putting up numbers as the other guys take an early extended vacation, because this team is probably the major team, I think, in the NBA, outside of Portland, depending on what happens with Dame, but I think Scoot might be able to actually keep them up. But this is the team where I look at and go, yeah, they're at the biggest risk of one of those extended losing streaks due to just an unfortunately large injury list that's made up of nebulous injury designations. I reckon they might suffer through some of that at the end of this season. Now, Brandon, it's time for a game. It's time to do some grid work for the Washington Wizards. So we've got the Wizards. The teams that we're comparing or getting the player combinations with are the Spurs, the Bulls, the Nuggets, the Knicks, the Grizzlies, and then the last one is you need a Wizard who had a 100 block season. So the rules are that, of course, you can only use the player once in each square, so you can't double them up into squares. They've got to have played 1 game for both teams in that square. The blocks per season, he has to have had 100 blocks in a season while playing for the Wizards. And because there are no rarity scores like the other grid games, because it's just you that's playing it, the way we are able to determine who gets the better score here is I look at the players and the games they played for each franchise. I pick the smallest number out of those 2, and then I grade all of those smallest numbers against everyone else to give you a score. So if your player you pick has played the most games, you get a score of 100. If he's played the fewest games, you get a score of 0. So someone might have played 300 games for the Wizards and 2 for the Spurs. That counts as a 2. And then we grade that against everyone else. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go. Where are we starting? Which combination are we going for here?
Ooh, man. I guess we'll roll with the Bulls.
All right, Wizards and Bulls. Who are we going for here? Who you got in your head that's going to be a good option, that's going to give us a nice little score?
Oh, man. That is a really good question.
There's quite a few crossover players that immediately come to mind for me. I've got this in front of me, but do immediately come to mind. But some of them have played quite a few games.
Oh, man. I'm trying to think, we're picking a player that because you might have to run it by me again.
So this player has played for the Wizards and the Bulls in their career, and then you want to find someone who has played the fewest games for either of those teams. It could be, they could have played 1 game for the Wizards and 300 for the Bulls, but that 1 game is what we're going to be counting. So you want to find like a player who's had some rare moments for either squad there.
Oh, so the Bulls, I'm going to roll with Tomas Satoransky.
Tomas Satoransky is a player that has played for both of these teams. So that's correct. The unfortunate thing for you, Brandon, is he did play quite a few games for both franchises. So he's not the highest score there, but it is an 86.52. We are looking for lower scores. The highest score actually of the players playing between the Bulls and the Wizards is Michael Jordan, which he played 142 games for the Wizards, and obviously he's 900 or so for the Bulls, but that 142 is the highest number. You know, Daniel Gafford was obviously one in there, but Jaren Grant was to play for both teams, and he barely played for the Bulls, so he played six. Oh, he barely played for the Wizards. Played 6 games for the Wizards. Jaren Grant. Otto Porter was a name that we could have had there. Bobby Portis as well, with his little 28-game Wizards stint. All right, which team are we going for now?
All right, let's roll with the Denver Nuggets.
Ooh, okay. All right, what are we looking at here with this one?
Let's roll with Ish Smith.
Ish Smith is a legend at this game because he played for every team in the NBA, and he did not play very much at all for Denver, so that is a big W for you there, because he only played like 40 games last season. That is a 10.12 for Ish Smith, so that is a really good score for you, Brandon. The best score you could have got is some bloke by the name of Aaron Williams, who I have legitimately never heard of. Yeah, there you go. Well, Ty Lawson would have been an interesting one as well.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Jan Vesely as well with his 21-game Nuggets career, but maybe that's too painful for Wizards fans to bring up. What?
Very painful.
What are we looking at next? Which one do you want to go with?
Let's roll with the Spurs.
The Spurs. Okay. This one, top of my head, I'm struggling with a name for this one. But I do have the list. Let me just go and have a look and see if it is as hard as I think it is. Oh no, there's a few here. Oh no, there's a few here for sure.
I guess we'll roll Drew Gooden.
Ooh, I had dinner next to Drew Gooden while I was in Vegas for Summer League. Sat down, I go, who's this bloke? And then Drew Gooden was there. And then I came in, and then Channing Frye came in and sat on the table next to me. That was a pretty weird experience. And Channing Frye and Drew Gooden just spent like 20 minutes talking to each other before they decided they were going to eat, and then they went to separate tables and ate. So yeah, Drew Gooden, that is a 7.41 because Drew Gooden only played 19 games for the Spurs. That's a good pool, Brandon. All right, what are we at next?
Let's go with the Grizzlies.
Let's go with the Grizzlies. Okay. So Tyus Jones does not count because he has not played for the Wizards yet. So who else does then? Oh, there's a great one in here. All right, who else have we got?
Oh man, that's a good one. I'm trying to think. Memphis and Washington. Man.
There are some really good ones here.
I know. I can't even think of it. Memphis.
Oh man,
I know. I'm trying to blank on Memphis, man.
This is not. There are some really good names, but this is not easy to find the guy who played. Yeah, this is hard actually. All right, so what are we thinking?
Be honest with you, I have no idea.
All right, so let's give you a little bit of a hint here. Think of there is a Wizards, an actual Wizards legend who did play a handful of games for Memphis. You know, he played for the Wizards back in the 2000s. That's mainly where he did most of his damage, 2000s, early 2010s, but he was a legitimately top-level player for the Wizards. That's one of them.
Yep. Gilbert Arenas.
Gilbert Arenas did. That is exactly what I was talking about. He played 17 games for Memphis. I had no idea that I don't remember that happening at all. That's a 19.74 score. Some of the other names there. How about, do you remember the 2 games that Mike Bibby played for Washington?
That's right. Okay.
There was that one. What about Jared Utoff that played 3 games for Washington and 4 for Memphis? Delon Wright was another one on there too. Yep. He obviously played in Memphis. Cherokee Parks was on that list, and Drew Gooden was also on this list too, as was Shelvin Mack. All right, so that would bring us to, we've got the Knicks or the 100-block season.
Let's roll to the 100-block season.
All right, so with this one, they have to have blocked 100 shots in a season for the Wizards, and the best score you get is from getting a player who has played the fewest games for the Wizards in their career. So fewest games for the Wizards in their career. Not fewest games in their career, just fewest games for the Wizards, and that gets you the best score. There are 16 players in Wizards history who have had 100 blocks in Wizards/Bullets history. 100 blocks in a season.
Oh, man. Let's roll with 100 blocks. Brendan Hayward.
Brendan Hayward is correct. He did have 100 blocks in a season. Brendan Hayward, unfortunately, played 579 games for the Wizards, so that's a pretty high number. The thing with sometimes with these ones here that are hard to get your head around is that sometimes the obvious answer is the right one because Kristaps Porzingis played 82 games only for the Wizards. So everyone else had played tons, but there's some good names on here. Marcin Gortat, JaVale McGee, Andre Blatch is there, Chris Webber, George Murasan, Purvis Allison, Manute Bol. There's some great names on there. All right, the Knicks is the last one.
Oh, this is gonna be a good one too. The Knicks. All right. Man, let me think. Play for the Wizards and the Knicks.
Wow, there is an absolute unbelievable name on here that I did not know at all. Wowee.
Man, this is a good one, man. The Knicks.
There are two really good. Oh, here we go.
Jared Jeffries.
Jared Jeffries is correct. Jared Jeffries did play for both teams. He played quite a bit for both teams, though, but that's okay. We'll put him on as your score there, and then I'll tell you these other names that I was looking at here with some really interesting guys there because Trevor Ariza was one of them who played for the Knicks. Yeah. He played quite a few games there, but Ron Baker played 4 games for the Wizards. I didn't remember that happening. Mike Bibby played for the Knicks as well, so he was another option there. But the one that's one of the best is Daniel House Jr. played 1 game for the Wizards and 1 game for the Knicks. That is the ultimate crossover. 1 game for both teams. I do not know that. I don't think I've ever seen that, a player playing 1 game for both of those teams. But that's where we are. I'm safe to say I've never seen that. And that, Brandon, will bring us to the end of the show. So thank you for coming on, chatting about the Wizards with me. Tell me what's going on over at Locked On Wizards at the moment.
Oh, it's an exciting season coming up. So this next month, we're going to do a lot of mailbag questions, a lot of hot takes. So, definitely send us your best questions. But now, we're looking forward to the season because it's a new era in Wizards basketball. You got a new front office, new coaching staff. So, there's a lot of optimism. So definitely tune in because, it's going to be probably the most easy watchable garbage team in the NBA. So
it's going to be scoring. There is going to be a lot of scoring. There might be a lot of scoring both ways, but there is going to be a lot of scoring, and that sometimes can make for interesting stuff, especially when it's a bad team. Brandon, thank you again for coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And that will do it for me today. Don't forget to follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on the Odyssey app and on YouTube. Thumb it up and leave your comments down below. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.